discover the new Burkina Faso. Under the leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Before we dive into this story, hit the comment and tell us your city. Let's see how far this story reaches. If you like the video, please like the video and subscribe my channel. The story of Burkina Faso today begins not in wealth or glory, but in the dust of the Sahel, in villages once forgotten, in the cries of children unable to go to school, in the farmers who abandoned their fields under the shadow of fear. For many years, this landlocked nation carried the heavy burden of poverty, political instability, and violent insurgency, and the world often overlooked it, seeing only statistics of despair. But in 2022, a new voice rose from within the ranks of the military. A young captain, just 34 years old, who carried the fire of defiance in his heart and the vision of sovereignty in his mind. His name is Ibrahim Traoré, and under his leadership, the people of Burkina Faso have begun to believe once again that they are the masters of their own destiny. When he stepped forward in September of that year, the people were weary of broken promises, foreign troops, and leaders who seemed unable or unwilling to protect them. But Traoré was different. He declared that security and dignity would never again be outsourced. He called on his people, especially the youth, to rise not just with arms, but with courage and unity. Thousands volunteered to defend their villages, forming local brigades ready to stand guard over their land and their families, and suddenly Burkina Faso no longer looked like a victim of endless violence. It looked like a nation awakening to its strength. The image of young men and women taking up the call of their captain lit a fire of pride that had long been extinguished. They were no longer waiting for foreign powers to rescue them. They were becoming their own defenders, and with this, a deep sense of ownership and belonging spread across the land. As Traoré consolidated his leadership, he made it clear that the days of neo-colonial control were numbered. He spoke openly and boldly against the structures that kept African nations tied to old powers and dependent on outside influence. He demanded that foreign troops withdraw from Burkinabe soil, and he sought alliances based not on submission, but on equality. He insisted that the resources of Burkina Faso belonged first and foremost to its people, and that no outside actor had the right to dictate the fate of the nation. This stance resonated not only within Burkina Faso, but across Africa, where many saw in him a reflection of the legendary Thomas Sankara, who decades earlier had declared that Africans must learn to rely on themselves. Traoré, in many ways, seemed to carry Sankara's torch into the present day. His speeches, fiery and uncompromising, electrified crowds, and his actions backed them up by reorienting the country towards sovereignty and self-reliance. But his vision went beyond the battlefield. And foreign policy, Traoré recognized that the true strength of Burkina Faso would come from its ability to feed itself, to educate its youth, and to believe in its own identity. He urged farmers to return to the land, promising support and investment in agriculture so that Burkina Faso would not be shackled by dependence on imported goods. He emphasized food security as a foundation of independence. And in the rural villages, the rhythm of farming began to echo. Once again, seeds were planted, not only in the soil, but in the hearts of the people, who began to see farming as a patriotic duty and a way to rebuild the nation. Schools, too, became a focus. But they were not only places for learning arithmetic and language. They became grounds for instilling pride. Traoré emphasized that education should teach children the value of their history, their culture, and their African identity. Liberation, he said, was not only a matter of guns and borders, but of minds and values, and so a new generation is being shaped with lessons not just in classrooms, but in the living memory of a people rediscovering who they are. The challenges, however, remain heavy. The insurgency has not disappeared, and attacks still bring grief to families. The economy struggles under the weight of conflict, displacement, and isolation. Critics argue that arming volunteers may create instability, and others warn that breaking ties with traditional foreign partners could deepen hardship. But Traoré remains steadfast. His words remind the people that the road to freedom is never easy, that every generation must sacrifice to ensure the dignity of the next. He frames the struggle not as a curse, but as a test, a measure of whether Burkinabe people are willing to rise for their own sovereignty. His leadership is not painted in promises of ease, but in calls to resilience, sacrifice, and courage. And though the hardships continue, his stance has inspired belief that their suffering has purpose, belief that tomorrow may truly be theirs. The story of Captain Ibrahim Traoré is thus more than the tale of a young soldier who seized power. It is the story of a people rediscovering their spirit under his watch. Burkina Faso has become more than just a country on a map. It has become a symbol across Africa, a symbol of resistance to domination, a symbol of courage in the face of overwhelming odds, a symbol that no matter how small or poor a nation may be, its dignity cannot be purchased or stolen. And it is in this symbolism that Traoré has touched hearts far beyond his borders, from Dakar to Kinshasa, from Bamako to Johannesburg. Young Africans speak his name as a reminder that leadership can still mean sacrifice, that sovereignty can still be claimed, and as Burkina Faso continues to fight for its survival, it is also building something new, a country where farmers till their fields with pride, where children learn not only to read, but to honor their heritage, where young men and women stand guard over their communities with the conviction that their land belongs to them. A country that, though still scarred by war and struggle, shines as the land of upright people. A name that once seemed like an aspiration now begins to feel like a reality under Traoré's leadership. Burkina Faso is no longer a forgotten nation. It is a rising voice. It is a challenge to the world order. It is a beacon of defiance and inspiration for an entire continent. And so when the story of Burkina Faso is told in the years to come, it will not only be a story of hardship, it will be remembered as the moment when a young captain stepped forward with fire in his eyes and a promise on his lips that his people would rise again. It will be remembered as the rebirth of a nation under the fearless leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the man who turned despair into courage and gave his people not only weapons but hope, not only speeches but vision, not only survival but pride. And as the sun rises each day over the landlocked heart of West Africa, the people know that they are no longer just enduring history, they are writing it themselves.